Today we're going to be doing a video on exposing Tiffany Calloway, basically a bitter BW who made this false article about biracial kids from black fathers being 92% fatherless, and this is actually a fabrication as this article shows. So for any of them people using this argument to back up their source or use this argument, send them this video. And for all those simps that come to my comment section and say, oh, the white man, you're dating the white man's daughter, blah, blah, blah. The white man wrote this article over a BW that your queen tried to promote a false statistic about you to make you look like you're a deadbeat father because they can't take responsibility for their own actions. They go around having multiple babies like the welfare queens they are. And then they have this article that they published that has many flaws and it's very sloppy. It's inaccurate to make you look bad. That's your black queens for you. And these aren't white women doing this. It's not the non-BWs doing this. This is a BW that did this. So they were going to expose her and break down this stat, this inaccurate stat. So it says that it appears that SSRN has removed Callaway paper from their database. So SSRN was basically the people, the form that they were using to publish this. And it looks like Tiffany Calloway was an independent researcher. So this already shows that she lacks credibility. Not saying that she can't be a good self-independent researcher, but she doesn't work for a large corporation. People don't know this woman. They never heard of her before. And she just comes out of nowhere as an independent researcher and publishes this paper was already inaccurate from the start. So she already lacks credibility as it is. So let's get into the paper. So it says right here that these are especially popular in hate groups like the BW hate group that blame black men for all their problems. This says it right here: hate groups or anti-black bias or anti-black men bias. That's what it should say. So here it goes right here. So this was gathered from less than 1,000 people. So how is it you have 21 million black men in America? You have even more white women, Hispanic women, and Asian women. But you only have 1,000 people. So this is a sample stat. A sample stat only covers a certain amount of people. And they're using this for the broader set of population, which is not going to work because that's the entire statistic. That's what the census would give, which would be an accurate stat. But since this was less than 1,000 people, this is not an accurate stat. And that would make sense, too, when it speaks about the income of this paper. It speaks about, not the income, but how many people are financially supported by these black fathers. And it said 2%. That's a complete lie, because if 30% of black men or over 50% of black men with bachelor's degrees are married interracially and over 30% are married to white women, then that wouldn't make sense. That wouldn't be true, because those men are supporting their children because they have the means and the money to support their children. We can make that hypothesis based on that fact, right? And they didn't cover that because it's less than 1,000 people. So they basically try to get a certain group of people by publishing the internet, publishing certain articles to attract certain low-income people, and that was also exposed. And it says here that the sample size and the racial ethnic distribution were not stated in the body of the paper and appear only in the abstract. And what's funny about it is that's what I want to say too, is that they know what they were doing when they wrote this paper, and that's why the BW didn't include the sample stat. If you read the paper, you would think you're reading from the entire country of the United States. You would think it's covering the entire country of the U.S., but it wasn't. It was only covering less than 1,000 people, and she didn't state that in her paper. That's part of the reason why it wasn't published as well, because it wasn't accurate. It wasn't accurate, and there were a lot of other reasons why it wasn't published. They didn't know how she got the information. She said she got it from the internet and the newspapers, but they weren't sure if those targeted a specific audience, because from what they said, it seems like it was targeting a specific audience to get those numbers. And even if that wasn't the case, this was less than 1,000 people, so they can't publish this. And so this just shows you how bitter BWs are, how they go out their way to try to push a false statistic that it's not accurate to make you look bad and stop you from dating interracially because they can't compete with other races of women. Try to make you look bad in front of other races of women like your deadbeat fathers because they're irresponsible. And like I said, the woman who published this paper, I was told she was a single mom. She was a single BW. And this is why she's getting exposed in this video. So I hope she eventually watches this video once it gets more views. Because she need to watch this video. And it says right here, it only appears in the research methods of section paper. The author notes that the participants in the survey hailed from across the United States and that they were received via media outlets, like I said, such as newspapers, internet, radio, and that most of the respondents were recruited through internet advertisements. Interesting. So you can actually pick a certain amount of people with internet advertisement. It's obvious that the author, who lists herself as independent, incurred at least very modest expenses in placing these advertisers across the country. The paper further describes the process of documenting and verifying respondents that would be intensive, but by no means impossible for a single researcher. And here it says that the percentages in the discussion appear to be the author's original work. However, there are several instances of plagiarism throughout the paper. In the introduction, several sentences are copied nearly verbatim from sources not cited from the author. For example, partial sentence boys in a single-parent household were more than twice as likely to be incarcerated compared with boys raised in intact married homes. So what she did, she basically used another site, another article, another source to use as on her source, and she didn't cite that source. She didn't cite that source like she should have. So she used it to fit her narrative that black men are deadbeat fathers and that their kids are not going anywhere in life, but she used it from a completely separate source, which would be different from biracial kids, and specifically with black fathers, because they don't make up a large prison population. They make up lower prison population than white men, percentage-wise. You can look it up. So that alone isn't accurate. But she knows it's inaccurate, and that's why she cited it from another article to try to put her in the paper to push this narrative. And it didn't work. She got exposed. And she also cited the emotional effects of fatherlessness. And she got another one from Statistics of Fathers in America. So she's basically just citing different sources of quotes and put it in her article to make it seem like she got it from herself and that it's applying to this specific demographic that she's doing. And it's not applying to a specific demographic because this was cited from an entire population, and she's only doing it for less than 1,000 people. So this bitch is pretty much stupid. She's pretty much exposing how she just went out her way to try to write this article, and it's being labeled as inaccurate. Here is where she cited that at in her paper, all outlined in red. That's another thing. I've never seen it where she cited 1,000 people. She tried to hide that. Here's another one. In her discussion section, the author claims that at the time of the study, 100% of the women were single and unmarried, with a sample of 1,000 mothers of interracial children, finding not even one who was married strains crudely. Even if somehow the selection method was biased in favor of divorced women, the result of 0 married women would be highly implaceable. And that would be. That's just exposing it again. So this bitch is retarded. This bitch can't even get her information right. Here's another one. One could argue that perhaps this particular demographic might be extremely unlikely to be married at all. but the survey finds that 70%, 170 of the women, had been married to the father of their child at some point. By the time they were surveyed, all 170 women reported being divorced from their child father, and they had not remarried. So it could be possible that this BW purposely put in her ads only divorced women. And that sounds like that's what she did. So in her ads, she put when they wanted to fill out the little article, she only wanted divorced women. She said, if you're a divorced woman, then we can use you for a survey. And that's how she sounds like she recruited the people to take the article. So say 6% of college respondents report that their child has a good relationship with their father. But there's other statistical sources showing that over 72% of black fathers are involved in their children's life. So this doesn't correlate in line with the actual proven fact on an accurate survey, because that's an actual accurate survey. That doesn't align with this. So there's no way that this is an accurate statistic. It's sloppy. And this is what it says right here. Here is another error that they mentioned that will introduce. So it says, for example, the author asks a follow-up question of the 10% of women who responded yes to the question, is the father active in the child's life? But since the subsample has an even racial ethnic makeup, averaging the resulting percentages will introduce an error. The actual errors include this paper appear to be small, on the order of 1 or 2 percentage points. So she had errors in her stat. On top of that, on top of all the other errors, she actually had errors on her findings. So this is how stupid she is. She had errors on her findings. It says here it's a completely sloppy piece of research. And it is. This is pretty much exposing this BW. I expose this BW. And anybody who want to use this source, send them to this video and tell them to get a larger statistic instead of a sample stat of 1,000 people that they favor as purposely put out advertisements to target low-income people who have been divorced. Because that's what they use to target these people who will fit their article or fit this and use these people for these surveys to put in an article. And now it's exposed. Not only are you exposed in the blog, but now you're exposed in Clever Sheaf's YouTube video. So now you took 2 L's. See, this is what happens when you're a bitter BW. You should keep taking L's. Meanwhile, black men are out here married with their white women, with their fathers in their life. That's the reality. And you have to alter certain surveys to get a certain statistic that you want, and having to have that to be a sample stat so it can fit your narrative that black men are deadbeat fathers because you're irresponsible, you're a single mom, is not really going to help that. But this is what you have for being a bitter BW. And I enjoyed exposing you. Tiffany Calloway. And that's it.